Hey Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield and this is the Zwiftcast. Coming up on this episode. Hardware, a race to the bottom, or finally, a great deal for consumers as cheap, fully featured trainers, frames and smart bikes are revealed. Meet James Bailey, the public face of HQ in Zwift Riders. We talk to Mr. Helpful. And the Zwift Ride is white, unlike every other trainer or smart bike, which comes in any colour you like, as long as it's black or grey. Why is it white? Stay tuned to find out. Plus, Zwift CEO Eric Min speaks in public for the first time since he resumed the top dog spot at HQ. What's he got to say? Well, the cycling calendar has clicked around to July, as it does every year. And that means two things. Le Tour de France, with the men's event rapidly followed by the women's tour avec Zwift next month. It also means Eurobike, traditionally the venue for the latest shiny things to be unveiled for the indoor and outdoor cyclist as the whole industry gathers at the mega trade fair in Germany. Now, we are all over both these things like a cheap suit, and I've got a stellar lineup to chew the fat with me in a packed episode. Let's start with two veritable masters of their domains. G'day, Shane Miller.
Good evening, good afternoon, I've no idea what time zone I'm in, but hello.
We'll deal with your time zone in a short while. And hello, Eric Slange of Zwift Insider.
Good morning, good afternoon, Simon. Good to be here.
Morning for you, I believe, over in the Pacific region. Okay, well, what we're going to do is start with hardware, because I think that is the big story of this week, maybe even this month. A couple of weeks ago, Zwift removed its finger plugging the dam. I'm thinking of you, Shane, here, currently in Holland, or the Netherlands, we call it now, and we'll have more of that in a minute. But Zwift took its finger out the dam, and the floodwaters spilled all over Eurobike. The dam was price point. The flood is cheaper and cheaper hardware. Shane, fresh, I believe, I more than believe, I know from stalking the halls of Eurobike, Elite, and maybe more significantly, Jet Black, unveiled gob-smackingly good value trainers. We'll postpone discussion of Elite's utterly bizarre-looking square thing for now, but we will get to it, because how could we not? But we will focus on their lower-end trainers, the Avanti, and maybe more significantly, Jet Black's Victory. Now, I'm not great with numbers, but they're cheap. These boys are cheap trainers. They're going cheaper than a coop full of chickens. Shane, cheap trainers.
Well, absolutely, and that's a good thing, because everywhere else we're seeing prices go up. We're seeing prices go down, but not only prices go down for the same functionality, prices go down for fuller functionality. So what I'm calling fully featured, fully decked out trainers. So just touching on the Avanti, which is a new lineup to the Elite range, which is their lower end model, comes with built-in Wi-Fi. It has race mode, auto calibration, and everything else we expect. But that's the thing that took the cake, I think, of the entire show, and that was the Jet Black answer to the Zwift Hub, which was based on the Jet Black Vaults. $399, fully featured. We're talking Wi-Fi, race mode, sensor bridging, auto calibration, plus or minus 2%, which is good enough for what we mostly need. It's sent ripples. That's the only talking point. Now, I did visit our friends at Garmin/Tax. They had their 3M sitting there for $2,000 US with less features, but phenomenal pricing and a phenomenal spec sheet. Let's hope they can back it up. Now, it's not their first rodeo. If they were a first player, if they were a new entry to the game, I'd be a bit nervous for them, and I think would be a bit more skeptical. But they really nailed it with the Jet Black Vault and the Vault version 2, which became the Hub, which everyone loved. This is their next edition. So stepping up and stepping down in price. I am so keen to get one in the Llama Lab, and one is in transit at the moment.
And I mean, let's face it, cheap normally means crap. You know, you can get good or you can get cheap, usually. But these, at least subject to your testing, seem to be both cheap and good. And that is such a rare thing. Eric, let's talk pie, because we're not talking about pie. I mean, these trainers...
Pie.
More pie. These trainers are essentially competing with Zwift's Great White Hope. You see what I did there? The Zwift ride. But they'll soon be compatible with the ride. And more importantly, as well as obviously they're competing with the ride, but all of this, what does all of this do, Eric? All of this grows the pie.
Yes, more pie. We support more pie. Yeah, I would argue they really aren't competing with Zwift Ride. I think the more trainers that support virtual shifting, the more Zwift Ride frames Zwift is going to sell. And I think really, I mean, if we're talking about Zwift's Great Hope, I think their hope is a high-spec direct drive trainer that's easy to set up and use, and it's priced affordably. So really trainers especially like the Victory that was just announced, but also the Avanti, to an extent, are exactly what Zwift wants to see more of, because they're making Zwift more accessible. The Avanti is priced at $850 US, and there's never been a trainer that was, at least their specs say that it's 1% plus minus 1% accuracy. There's never been a trainer with that accuracy level at that price point yet. So that's a big deal. I mean, that's the 1% accuracy line is where the elite racing requirements are on Zwift. And then the Victory, like Shane was saying, the fact that they're offering that for $400 US is just crazy. I mean, that's unheard of.
Absolutely. And I mean, I use the rather stretched analogy of the dam braking, but it actually does feel like a dam braking. Shane, just explain to me very briefly and also to the listeners, what are the benefits of built-in Wi-Fi?
Less dropouts, less confusion, first of all, when we first started introducing people to Zwift, we had to educate them on what Ant Plus was. What's Ant Plus? Oh, you need an Ant stick. Oh, I've got to go out and buy this. I've got to plug it in. Hang on, my iPhone doesn't have Ant. It just became, we dragged ourselves over glass to understand how to hook it up, how to get rid of these dropouts. Oh, you've got Wi-Fi on channel 10 at home? Well, that's going to blat your Ant.
We're in the realm of my microwave is interfering with my structured training, aren't we? Which, nobody wants to be there.
Absolutely. Wi-Fi becomes what I call Google Easy or iPhone Easy. You unbox your trainer, you set it up within the app, you give it your Wi-Fi password, that's it. I've been screaming about this for a long time, and it's finally here, and it's the standard, which is so good to see.
Later in the episode, we've got a full interview with the dude at HQ who made the Zwift ride happen. But I just want to pick one thing out of that as a preview. And it's an opportunity, I think, for myself and Eric to eat a little bit more pie, eat a little bit of humble pie, more pie, even humble pie, we like more pie. Because last episode, Eric, both of us speculated, because we like to do that the Zwift ride was a loss leader. In effect, hardware subsidized by Zwift to promote software subscriptions. So I put that very question to Graham Stoney, the designer of the Zwift ride, and this is what he said.
Are we subsidizing the hardware in any respect? The answer to that is categorically no. This product sits in its own right as a piece of hardware that covers itself in terms of its cost.
Eric, we were wrong.
I re-listened to that episode, and we never said it was a loss leader. We said it was almost a loss leader. And I still think that's true. You'll notice Graham said that it covers itself in terms of its cost. So to me, that means Zwift figured out what the ride would cost to manufacture and support for its lifespan, and then they set the price to cover those costs. Maybe they built a tiny bit of profit into the price there, so that there's no way the Zwift ride is a profit center for Zwift.
Yeah, I mean, what Graham may have meant was it's not very profitable. It's just a tiny bit profitable, depending on how you do the calculations. Yeah, okay, well, let's call that what we used to call a score draw. Shane, all this downward pressure on pricing. Now, the more cynical amongst us, the kind of inescapable conclusion here is that these companies have for years and years been fleecing consumers with artificially jacked up pricing. Fair or not fair?
No, I don't think that's quite fair, because in charging the prices they have to date, it gets them to the point now where they can offer cheaper products, because it requires that development of things like Wi-Fi, DIRCON, those standards, and the industry coming together. So I think we had to wear the pain a little bit to then be able to turn it back down on the pricing. So I think we're in a fair state. All I can say is it's good to see the prices now have what I would consider more value in them.
Yeah, I kind of buy that. I buy some of it. I mean, I think they probably were making a lot more profit then than they are now, but maybe they had to go to that place first to get the expertise to be able to do what they're doing now. Maybe we'll never know, but anyway, it's an interesting discussion point. Okay, let's nearly wrap this one up with a short debate, because this will be very subjective, about Elite's The Square. I know. I mean, Elite has a long history of distinctive designs. Remember that trainer that looked like a giant toaster? And that weird arty smart bike thingy, which was quite beautiful actually, but it was made from like wooden perspex, and it cost about €1 million. Well, they've continued to challenge the boundaries of conventional design, shall we say, with the Square. Listeners, Google it if you haven't seen it. Shane, it's a square. I mean, it's a square with pedals, bars, and a seat attached. And my, oh my, it's expensive. Talk about bucking the trend.
Can you make it pretty? They didn't do that either. They didn't even make it pretty. That's in line with what they've done in the past, but as you've said. But look, it's an interesting product on the market because it does address three concerns. Actually, I think there was four. I pointed out three, and then when Ray and I were discussing it, there were four. Let me see if I can reel them off. So it has adjustable crank lengths. It has a belt drive. It supports the riser. So the Elite riser, so it does go up and down. But the saddle fore and aft is also adjustable. Now, when it comes to the ride feel and the ride type, that depends on the trainer that you have and that compatibility with the virtual shifting. They say it'll support third-party trainers. It's different. It's a little costly, but competition is good. Because without competition, the Zwift Ride would be a little higher in price.
I think it's Shane. You've got very Shaney about this, which is not surprising because you're Shane. So you're bound to be Shaney, and you've made some excellent technical points there. But the thing looks... I mean, would you have that in your house or garage, for God's sake?
With the lights off. Only with the lights off. Because the touch points are great. You can adjust those, but it's in line with their design of a few other things. Yes, it's in person. It's like all things. It's better in person. It's better in person. I can tell you that.
Okay, well, that's very, very forgiving of you. Eric, I mean, the aesthetics are one thing, and of course they are like super subjective, and I would invite you to comment on the aesthetics in a moment, but the price is quite another. And I'm looking at the Square, I'm looking at the Neo, I'm looking at the Kicker Smart Bike, and I'm thinking these are increasingly looking like the dinosaurs of the trainer world just before the meteor hit.
Look, aesthetically, I'll just say it. The Square looks ridiculous. There might be a few folks who think it looks cool and different, but I think by and large, that bike is only going to appeal to people who don't care what their trainer setup looks like. And there are a lot of people out there like that.
Yeah.
Riders who care much more about function over form. I didn't realize I cared so much about aesthetics until I saw these other smart frames. Are high-priced smart bikes going the way of dinosaurs? That was the other part of your question. And I would say, yes, I think so. My feeling is there's not a big enough market for a $4,000 stationary bike at this point.
No, when you look at the features available from the competition at the prices.
Exactly. I could see maybe a $2,500 to $3,000 premium smart bike version that's, maybe about double what the Zwift Ride is. But to me, that $4K price point just seems silly for whatever added features you're going to get. So my gut would say if Wahoo or Garmin or anyone comes out with a new smart bike, it's going to be a lower priced offering with just the essential features instead of a new premium high priced one.
I think they have to react. Shane, did you march up to Garmin and say you are a dinosaur and you're about to be made extinct?
I my relationship with Garmin is thawing, which is great. But I did mention, I said, hey, look, $399 around the corner there, fully featured, a little bit more features than the one in front of us, which is 5 or 6 times the price. I did ask Garmin, but I think they're as the premium brand. They're sitting back doing well, but they need to move and move fast. And there's a lot of people out there with Neos who want virtual shifting. They love their Neos, love that ride feel. They want that bike on top of it though. So we'll see what they do in the near future. They've got to move in 6 months. They have to move in 6 months to something, to be back in the conversation.
They've got to move, otherwise they will turn into the Campagnolo of the trainer world, which is still very beautiful kit, but it costs an awful lot of money and it appeals to about 1% of the market. But I just made those numbers up, but you know what I mean.
Ride on!
Okay, tour time. The best 3 weeks of the year, and a truly memorable and magic moment happened on stage 4. Mark Cavendish, Sir Mark Cavendish, I should say, a great friend of Zwift, finally clinched the win to take him to the all-time record of staged wins. Now, I watched this live, and I have to say, I'm not prone to getting emotional watching sport, but I got more emotional watching that than I've ever been watching any kind of sport. It was utterly fantastic. That very same day, I talked to Kate Verneau, Zwift's head of women's cycling, and now very firmly embedded within the Tour ecosystem. We're going to have a full interview with her on the next episode, but I just asked her for a reaction to Mark Cavendish's win.
Mark Cavendish is also a champion of women. He's one of the first people to congratulate, the big riders. I remember when Voss won a record amount of stages in the women's Giro, he was one of the first ones to repost it and share. He shows up to women's races. He has a daughter. He's a special guy. He's a big Zwifter and could not have happened to a better bloke. And I think the whole world cheered on that one.
Okay, as I say, the full interview with Kate will be on the next episode. But now, let's welcome 2 giants of the Zwift racing world to glory in this just a little longer. Dave Toll and Nathan Guerra. Nathan, yo dude, I should say.
Hey, how's it going, Simon? Good to be here again.
Pretty good, thank you. Now, conventional wisdom has it that the fast twitch muscles, which I know you have in abundance, that you need to win sprints, decline as you age. That's just like science. Cav is 39. He's beating world-class sprinters 15 years or more his junior. I don't expect you to know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How the hell does he do it?
Well, I mean, Cav is only a little bit younger than me, so maybe I do know a couple of the answers to this question. But when you have a GOAT, when it literally is the GOAT of a sport, if we do a comparison of Michael Jordan even took a break and came back and, didn't play necessarily at the level where he's scoring the most points out of everybody in the entire league, right? So we're talking about somebody who literally has won the most now in the Tour de France, right? And so, when you dominate that well, you show that you're a percentage above. Sure, there might be some percentage losses here, but when you match that with the experience, as well as the fact that he hasn't really taken a serious, long-term break or anything, experience plays a thing. And then I got to say something to the armchairs out there, because the idea that this was even gifted is such an armchair take is wow. I don't know, that's kind of been out there, and the amount of, I would say it's like whole roll tinfoil hat. You have to use the whole roll to get there, that this in any way was not genuine, because I saw that sitting around in some places, and you would have to really, really manipulate that situation in order to get there.
I think I saw that comment that you were perhaps talking about, where someone had the temerity to suggest that he was gifted the win. Now, for people who have not the faintest idea of how cycling works, I can almost understand that, but it is also actually a sign of just how insanely brilliant that win was, and you kind of referred to it a little bit experience. I mean, obviously you've got the physical prowess needed to win a sprint in the Tour de France, but Cav has also got the savvy, and he almost and I hate it when people say this, he made it look easy, because there is no such thing as easy in winning a sprint in the Tour de France, but his technique made it look as though he achieved it easily. It was just brilliant to watch. Dave, excitingly, I think you are actually going to Le Tour, and we'll get more of that in a moment, but I'm guessing when Cav crossed that line first, that's one sprint you'd have sawn off your right arm with a blunt penknife to have been commentating on.
Yeah, I mean, if that was an option, I'd take it. I think it definitely, the highlights of my career announcing absolutely include calling Mark Cavendish across the line. He did a bunch of Amgen Tour of California wins in front of me, and Tour of Missouri. He went on a roll back in 2008. So right during the launch point of his career, he was racing in the United States a lot. He was on the High Road team that was based in the United States, and he would come over to California. He still does come to California for multiple weeks at a time.
Yeah, sorry to stop you, Dave. He was a big star in America, wasn't he?
Really, to tell you the truth, his zenith was at the perfect time when there were so many eyeballs on the sport. And I always, looking at the success that Mark is having right now and how the reaction from people has been overwhelmingly joyful, it absolutely makes me realize that you get what you give in this world. And I'll never forget, Simon, going to Ghent in 2016 to announce in the Kupka, it's the biggest velodrome-based 6-day event in the world. And Mark and Brad Wiggins were there racing. It was going to be Wiggins' finale of his career. They ended up winning. But the moment for me that stood out was there's a little dining room in the velodrome where there's a chef and he cooks food for the riders only. So I was invited into that room to eat. And it was one of, I'm the only American there. Everybody else is deeply entrenched in this world. But when Mark saw me walk into the room, the first thing he did was do his imitation of me, pull a chair back, ask me to sit down, and tells all the riders in the room how I'm the voice of American cycling, and this is going to be a kick-ass experience to have me in Ghent to call the race. And immediately I got respect, and that was such a gift from him, I realized. It took so much of the nerves away, and that's who Mark Cavendish is. That's exactly what he does for people, and that's why he's so loved as a champion.
That's a wonderful anecdote, Dave, and also just does illustrate that point that we saw after the stage win. Like, I think probably every single woman, obviously in all the shots of it, but I think pretty much every single rider in the peloton came and congratulated Cavendish. That was everyone was rooting for him. And they do say there are no fairy tales in sport. Certainly no fairy tales in cycling, but this was as close as you get to a fairy tale. It was a and I make no apologies for rattling on about this on a podcast that's supposed to be about indoor cycling, because it was just the greatest moment. It was fantastic. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Le Tour, because we always do in July. Even though we're all matters indoors, the Tour is like the biggest thing ever in cycling, and rightly so. There's nothing quite like it. And Dave, you got a text saying, "Hey dude, you want to come to the Tour avec Zwift, I understand. Tell us more."
Yeah, talk about a great opportunity, right? Zwift creates a really fun gathering spot for all of our friends and family. There's a lot of racers in the Tour that have a relationship with Zwift, and so the last 2 stages there, we're going to be set up right on course, or actually on the course of the final time trial that's going from Monaco into Nice. Could be an insanely historic day. Obviously the first time that we haven't been in Paris since the mid-'70s for the finale of the Tour. And the way things are shaping up right now, can you imagine if Remco is within 30 seconds of Tadej on that stage? You would have what could be as exciting a finale as 1989 with the Le Mans win.
It might not be 30 seconds, Dave. Last year, Jonas put a minute 30, a minute 40 into Pog over, I don't know, I think it was only 25 or 30K. So Yeah, I mean, our final day time trial to decide Le Tour on that, and I've ridden that road between Monaco and Nice. It is just stunning. You must be Mr. Excited.
Yeah, I mean, getting to hang out with some of my favorite people on the planet, so many friends in the Zwift world will be there. It's just such a celebration of what Zwift is all about. Community, bike racing, beautiful places, being fit mentally and physically. Life is going to be incredibly good that weekend.
Right on!
Now, I noticed a Zwift bidon on the table in front of the host of The Move, Lance Armstrong's video podcast on all matters racing in France in July. Now, that's not for hydration. That's product placement. Nothing gets on Lance's show without a price attached. Do we care that Zwift is sponsoring a guy who is still, all this time later, still incredibly divisive and polarizing? Me, I don't give a fig. I do not give a flying fig. I do feel that, the time has come now to move on with Lance, and he's got a lot to say. He's got a lot of insight. There's probably very few better qualified people in the world to talk about the goings-on in the peloton during tour time. It's a cracking podcast. But I know that not everybody shares that view. Nathan, what's your view?
The idea of moving on and how we're moving forward in the world is really a really good thing around somebody who has taken their licks. And so it seems that the bet here from Zwift on this is that they are all in on that kind of a world, right? Like they're making the bet on, okay, it's time. And when a company does that, they're kind of making a statement, like we're moving on and we're putting a bet on forgiveness and everybody's going to come together. So that's the move here, it looks like. And I would think that would be the statement as well.
Dave, I mean, in the modern parlance, is it time now to uncancel Lance?
Well, it's not my call. I think it's one of these things that the public will speak, right? And the sponsors will make their decisions based on, what people are into. I'm definitely someone who, as I've gotten older, I've become much less judgmental, partly for fear of being a hypocrite as well. And I now look at it this way, Simon. If Lance is getting more people onto Zwift, then it makes sense for Zwift to do this. Lance is not the devil. He's not an angel either, nor is anybody else in cycling. So, right. And so for that reason, I say, go, you do you, Lance. And I'm not here to gatekeep at all. I want to see more people on bikes, more people on Zwift, more people working on their mental health, more people working on their physical health. And I think that Lance speaks to a group out there. So more power to him.
That's a very, very, very balanced view, Dave, and some real wisdom in that. Thank you very much for that. Okay, let's move on.
Right on!
Coming up, we will pass the interview Eric Min did with D C Rainmaker at Zwift HQ to see if we can spot direction of travel for Zwift in coming weeks and months. That's in a little while. But now let's return to where we started, because hardware is the big story in indoor cycling at the moment. A few days ago, I talked to Graham Stoney, the guy who led the team which spent the better part of 2 years developing the Zwift Ride. Graham, welcome to the Zwiftcast.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
We talk on the very day that Zwift Ride starts shipping.
It's a big day, but very, very exciting. Great combination of lots of teamwork over the last nearly 2 years to get to where we are with the hardware. We've had some great media feedback over the last couple of weeks.
Is shipping day like arguably the biggest day of the development process?
From a purely business perspective, absolutely, because that's when you start to see that your customers want the product you've made. But in terms of making a piece of hardware, the biggest day is it comes off the factory line as you expect it to. And now it's just, have we made the right hardware for the customer base, that we have actually got the right hardware for the people?
Were you exceptionally nervous in this period where the media get a look at it, all these highly qualified people sitting behind a keyboard comment on your work?
The media teams that have had hold of the products and have been testing it, this might sound strange, they are not the highest percentage target market
Exactly.
for this piece of hardware. So you're going to get feedback from an incredibly technical perspective and from a very cyclist perspective, slightly different in terms of target market that the ride has been defined for. We have users who ride a lot. Cycling is part and parcel of their entire life cycle and lifestyle, but they are not someone that likes to get involved mechanically with bikes. We have tinkerers and we have non-tinkerers, mechanically savvy and non-mechanically savvy, but cycling is just as much important in their life as those that tinker with bikes.
I understand you did a very, very extensive testing process with more, shall we say, ordinary people.
Yeah, ordinary people, yes, absolutely. From our side, the most important people for this product, absolutely. From inception through to what colour is it going to be, through to what height does it need to work to, what does it look like, what's the form of the product, does it need to be an all-in-one or can it be modular? Every aspect of that, from the industrial design and the user experience, everything is tested. We have a hypothesis, but it's pointless having a hypothesis until you test it to go, we thought it might be this. And often, which is great about working with the general public, often you find out, oh, wow, we were wrong. And this does matter to them.
Let me just stop you there because I'm really interested in that. What were the top 2 or 3 things where the feedback that came from the public were the opposite to what you expected?
Colour matters. This is something that's going to sit in someone's home. And very much when you walk into a commercial gym, black and grey. And we offered people a choice of colours. And the colour that this product's launching with is white. Most of the users, we would like it white. We think that will sit in our space better. We like the aesthetic of it better. We like how it relates to cycling more than just black. So that was a wonderful learner for us.
How much, if any, of the work that was done on the cancelled Zwiftron themed Smart Bike was either used or rescued, or was this a completely fresh iteration?
It was a fresh iteration in terms of what we understood the market required. In terms of mechanical parts, yep, we've got certain mechanical parts that were on the Tron bike, so say the bottom bracket, etc., the handlebar. But in every other aspect, we learned a great deal about what Zwift needed to support the growth of Zwift. And the Tron bike, if we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, that's cyclist cycling. The Tron bike sat in that space incredibly well, but by deference, what it did was alienate quite a few cyclists who were like, oh, that's too high tech for me. That's not what my bike looks like or how I ride. And we went down the frame format that you see today aesthetically because it's something people relate to. They go, oh, it's like my bike. It looks like my bike. So that's the most important aspect for us to actually make something that the user can relate to.
In some respects, was the cancellation of the Tron bike kind of dodging a bullet because you might not have got that right?
I'm going to say something very controversial here. From a product perspective, the Tron bike would still sell. In my heart of hearts, the Tron bike would still sell. There would be people who absolutely love that product. But, as I said, it's a very small target market. Zwift is for a wider community. It's for a larger bunch of people. It's more encompassing of cycling, and therefore you need a product that encompasses that requirement. There will always be the people who want the most expensive is the wrong way to define it, but the most feature-rich, as opposed to the product that can speak to the vast majority of people, if that makes sense.
Let's discuss probably the single most important, eye-catching, unusual aspect of this product, the price. Did you set out to design to a price, or did you design the bike you wanted and then take out a load of stuff?
We knew we had to bring the price down that's more of affordable base for the majority of people. It didn't limit us in terms of what we wanted to create. We still knew what we wanted to create. We had an eye on what the price would be, but we didn't allow that to dictate certain features or certain aspects and modularity about the product. But I still think we've, as you said, achieved an astonishing product. at an incredible price.
Is the price that this is going out at actually a real price, or is Zwift effectively subsidising this product to help sell software subscription?
The answer to that is categorically no. This product sits in its own right as a piece of hardware that covers itself in terms of its cost.
The peg leg, as I rather rudely call it, one of those things that you think of maybe an inexperienced consumer would look at that and say, doesn't look very stable to me. Was there much internal debate about that?
Yes, you're right. It does make people stop and look and question. And I know that's that weird thing. There's an initial response, and then there's a response of, well, actually, when my bike is on a trainer, I've got so many mil touching the floor because it's a tyre. And therefore they go, oh, of course, the stability of this product comes via the trainer, just as it does when you put your bike on a trainer.
Yeah. Why no belt drive?
Virtual shifting's critical for us as a product. And virtual shifting for Zwift comes through the Zwift cog. And therefore, cog to work on a bike, it has to work with a chain. And so therefore, for cog to work with ride, we have to work with a chain.
Very simple answer. You've got this amazing color-coded system. I mean, I think even the most technically challenged person is going to be able to put this together very quickly and very easily. I think anybody with a brain knows that achieving the simple is actually very complicated. How difficult was that process?
It was in-depth. It took time. You watch people's faces light up when you give them a 6mm Allen and say, you're going to build the bike today with just this tool. I'm going to be building a bike. Absolute terror. You're going to use just this. I can't wait. It's exciting. And the achievement at the end of it, a user at the end builds a bike in about 5, 10, 15 minutes. And they stand back and go, I've built a bike. And I've built it just using this. And the sense of achievement's enormous.
Is the Trump bike dead? Or might it be resurrected?
It's a never say never thing. Right here, right now, in terms of the market, it's not a wide market appeal. So, but I would never say anything's truly dead.
Great to get some insight into the development process and the man who led the team that made it happen. Graham, thank you very much for your time.
Been a pleasure.
Right on!
I did ask Graham 2 questions the community, I'm sure, would have wanted me to ask. When is the frame bit of Zwift Ride available specifically beyond autumn or fall, which is all Zwift have said so far? And guess what he said? Autumn or fall. He wouldn't say any more than that. So I did ask him, but he wouldn't tell me. And secondly, I asked him what he and the team are working on next. And guess what? He wouldn't tell me that either. He was very, very closed-lipped. Tight-lipped, closed mouth, if you know what I mean about that. But Eric, for sure, they've got to be working on something. What would be your guess?
If I had to guess, I would say they're working on a trainer that could replace the Kicker Core as the trainer that sells with the Zwift Ride, because that would let them continue to influence the market somewhat by keeping trainer prices low and functionality high. And here's the added thing, maybe the trainer would have that big wheel look to it, like the trainer that they teased a few years ago, and that would make the ride look even more like a real bike, which is one of its strengths. So that's my best guess.
Interesting speculation. Shane, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I'd kind of like to hear your take on it, really. I mean, Zwift and Jet Black at one time were clearly like best buddies. I mean, they were, working together so closely when Jet Black made the Zwift Hub, basically. It was a rebranded Jet Black trainer. Where's that relationship at now? I mean, is it still good, do you think?
There's still Jet Black products on the Zwift e-commerce website, so the Jet Black accessories. So it's not, I don't think it's completely gone or completely ice cold. I think there was a complete mess of, was it Wahoo suing Zwift, who was effectively suing Jet Black as well because it was the same trainer. So I think they got tied up in that or caught up in that sort of whirlpool. And rather than the whirlpool sucking everyone down, the result is that, well, Zwift and Wahoo are in a good position now. They're now buddies. They held hands and kept afloat. Jet Black sort of, well, the hardware sunk as the Zwift hub.
Shane, kind of prowling its vast halls over 3 days, what was the kind of overarching word on Zwift Ride, number one? And number two, did you see anything else that excited you?
Not really for the excitement. It's not back in the day, Simon. Remember the first time you came to Eurobike and I said, prepare yourself. And we walked in together and I'm like, look, look at all this, and you're a kid in a candy store, and there was a lot of indoor stuff there because things were the momentum was just starting about what Zwift was, and RGT were there, Full Gas were there, everyone was there getting their name and brand out there. But as for the Zwift ride, Zwift weren't there. Now, they haven't been at Eurobike for a few years. Zwift are going direct to consumer, and they're doing their own thing now, so they don't need to be at Eurobike, and they're doing their own thing, and a lot of companies are doing their own thing now. Anyway, so Zwift weren't there. It would have been nice to see it there so people could actually try it. People are looking at what's new for all tech at Eurobike. So it was kind of missed, but everyone knew about it. That's the thing. Everyone knew about it. And with the trainers that were released there, or does it work with a Zwift ride? That was the question. So it's been noticed for sure.
Well, if you missed Eurobike, which is probably a kind of ordinary member of the public, you would really, because it's made for the trade. Shane has done a number of his usual terrific walkthrough videos, and you could feel like you were there if you go and watch Shane's videos of Eurobike on his GP Llama YouTube channel, a must for every discerning cyclist. Okay, let's move on. And I spent a fair amount of time listening a few times to Rainmaker's interview with Eric Min, Zwift CEO. I hope to have my own chat with Eric in the near future, but I wanted to analyse his first extended interview since he resumed his #1 leadership role at Zwift. The first thing I noticed was Eric revealing how many people now work at Zwift.
COVID ended, and then there was a lot of correction. And so it took us a couple of years to kind of right-size the business. And I think where we landed is now a business that's sort of like the size pre-COVID. This is a size that I'm very comfortable with, and we can already tell that, when you're not scaling your business for a large operation, you can move much faster, and we're seeing that already. Yeah, COVID was a bit of a godsend, but yeah, it bit us also.
What do you have? What's your rough employee count today?
About 300.
The next thing I was looking for was where Zwift's focus now lies. That was pretty easy to find because Eric repeated two themes several times. They are, 1, HQ is all about cycling, not rowing, not running, cycling. And secondly, the community is right at the very top of HQ's priority list. Listen to this.
Let's lean into, our core business, which is cycling, and really stay focused on the community. How I think about how I want to spend my time going forward is really like, how do we lean into to do more for the community? So the focus is like, let's do the right thing for the community. Let's lean into that. I think we just need lean into cycling, because I think, let's really cover that off before we start venturing and investing in other areas.
Okay, that's heavily edited, but it could not be clearer. The community is king, cycling is everything. Next, number of subscribers. Eric always gets asked this. He never answers fully, and you wouldn't expect him to. But we got something.
Have you crossed the magical boundary of 1 million paid subscribers?
We have.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I know. Yeah.
I was wondering when that was going to happen.
Yeah, that happened some time ago.
Ray asked Eric about the price rise, but there was nothing really new in his response. HQ did it reluctantly, he said, but it was necessary because there'd been no rise in 7 years and inflation has risen significantly over the period. Finally, Ray asked Eric about possible upcoming new features. This response was quite surprising.
Do you remember we had a feature where you could recharge a battery? We tucked it away, but I think it might come back with the controllers. But the idea that you can have a battery on your bike, a virtual bike, and you pick the battery. You want the small battery or the bigger battery? Bigger battery has more weight, but can hold a bigger charge, and the small battery is lighter, less charge. And the fact that you can use that throughout an event, for example, and you could have a power up. You're not cheating because it's your watts, right? Yep. So I think that I'm super excited about that as a feature that we tucked away, and I think we should bring back. And I've told the product team about that with the release of the ride.
Nathan, let's take these in order. The importance of the community. Well, actually, before we do that, how many times did Eric say lean into? I mean, everything. He's leaning into everything. He must be tilted at 45 degrees the whole damn time. I mean, I don't mean to criticise people for the way they speak, but that whole lean into thing drives me crazy. Nathan, do you leaning into?
I had actually a mentor who would use that a lot. But lean in is like lean into the conversation, lean into the action. It's a connection term, right? We're connecting, and with the community thing, right?
I'll tell you what it is. I will tell you exactly what it is. It's corporate nonsense. That's what it is. Corporate nonsense speak. Anyway, I've got that little bee out of my bonnet. What he was leading into significantly was the importance of the community. I mean, he was like crystal clear on that, to the point of kind of, ad nauseum repetition in some ways. How might that manifest itself, do you think, Nathan, this big stress now on the community?
Some of the other quotes that came in with Eric taking over Sole CEO again was about Zwift needs to feel like Zwift again. There's this reality of empowering the community, though, too, I think. The content is the ride. Think of all the subscription services that are out there that act as platform. Most of it is user-generated content. All the tools and the cool things are made in order for the users to do more of what they just want to do, what they want to create on the platform. Every video game culture that's online right now is about communities doing cool things together in some sort of way, and they get embedded.
You think it might manifest itself in fulfilling some of the kind of long-awaited promises to empower the community to, again, I hate this phrase, nearly as much as lean into, but to create content?
Yeah, 100%. We see that with Zwift Racing League, one of the most successful things that are on the platform. I think that's really what's being talked about there.
Yeah, Dave, I'll come to you on this in a minute, because I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say about this as well. But we'll just ascend from the slightly sublime to the completely ridiculous, the booster battery. The booster battery, and I believe this was John Mayfield's idea, and it flared up very briefly. Nobody liked it as far as I could see, and then it disappeared. But now Eric's saying it's coming back. Nathan, really?
The races were fun. They were fun, but we didn't have play controllers at that time yet. Are there ways to introduce it with the play controllers now, and now with the Zwift Ride, that become a little bit more fun? You throw some achievements around it. I don't know. Let's see. I'm a gamer though. Like I can see where this might be, especially in the middle of winter. I've done everything there is to do on Zwift. And even those who are like, what is that, might give it a go in some races.
It might have been an idea that was kind of before its time, and now we've got the Zwift controllers. The whole damn thing could work a little better. Interesting stuff. Dave, going back to Eric's emphasis on the community. So you've got a Zwift-shaped magic wand, and you can do something for the community. What would that be?
Well, going back to what Nathan said, empowering the community and seeing what they want to do seems to be the answer to me. The having that touchstone where everybody can come together and communicate, and having, real people at Zwift that are listening to what folks out there want. That seems to me, it's pretty simple, really, is listen to what they want and try to make that happen. I think a great example of that, Simon, was I saw a post in the Zwift community on Facebook where someone said, hey, Cavendish won. Why don't we celebrate that on Zwift, right? And I just sort of quietly asked, what would you like to do? And to see the varied responses, but I think that is exactly the way, is communicate, listen. That's the answer.
Excellent point. And I've got to ask you, Dave, as well, because I'm sure you commentated on some of the races or had some experience of the battery booster. Surprised to see that floated as a hot new item?
No, I'm not, because I think it's a cool idea. I really do. I think it speaks to strategy and tactics versus dumb luck, right? And that's part of what I'm exactly about is, let's use our brains. That's the gamification that I really enjoy on Zwift in the racing, is things like that. And so I'm all for it.
Unanimous here, actually, on that. Very interesting. All good stuff. As ever, we will watch with interest, and we will chip in either wanted or unwanted, with our threepence halfpenny or 2 cents when and if it happens. Okay, well, if you hang about at all in Zwift Riders on Facebook, you might just have come across Mr. Helpful, aka James Bailey, a Zwift staffer who makes it his business to answer as many questions and queries from Zwifters as he can. I caught up with James. 1 million Zwifters will have seen your helpful posts and answers to queries in the Zwift Riders Facebook group, but not all of them will know who you are. So, James, who are you?
My official role is a content specialist within the content team in Zwift. When we talk about content, we mean events and programs that we run.
A lot of people will know you from events, but many people will know you from just being that helpful guy who pops up on Zwift Riders to answer all manner of questions that people have.
My experience in using Zwift prior to the job, running the hurdle racing outfit, organising events on there, that I have a very good knowledge of the products in general. So I can answer most things. There are obviously certain things that I would never answer that are commercially sensitive, but generally there are people available that things I don't know the answer to. So as an example, I speak quite frequently with one of our developers who often will have a conversation about something one of our customers has raised that doesn't look right, and we'll see through to getting that sorted for them. But as a general rule, I just do what I can when I can.
The kind of range of queries that you're able to answer. Did you get like a lot of training for that, or is just that like an internal knowledge base of all matters Zwift that you built up?
It's entirely self-taught, just from the countless hours of riding and organising events.
Very impressive. Now, we all know how social media can be. Have you ever written a post in response to a question that might be a particularly, shall we say, vexatious question, possibly asked in the wrong kind of tone? Have you ever written a reply and thought, nah, and pressed delete on that?
I think, unfortunately, I've clicked on post rather than delete in the past. It can be an environment where tempers can flare quite easily on both sides. Somebody could be very upset about a result on what they've had. It could potentially be coming down to a point where it's almost being attacked personally. And there have been times where I've said things that, on hindsight, I possibly shouldn't have done. I think part of the reason why I'm respected by the community is that I will frequently speak my mind. I would just generally call a spade a spade. May not necessarily be the best approach at the time.
Well, no, but I think we get your point, actually. And I've noticed that you definitely do command a good deal of respect in the community and a good deal of appreciation. And that actually must bring a fair amount of job satisfaction, I would have thought.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I take great pleasure in being able to help people, either be it from a clarification point of view on a question they're asking, or if they genuinely need support that I'm able to do there and then yes, I absolutely take a great amount of pleasure from that.
Has there ever been a question that you don't know the answer to and then you've not been able to find out an answer to?
I don't think so. I think on areas that are outside my sort of key knowledge aspects, there are definitely people at Zwift who do know these things. It's often a case of knowing who to ask the right question to.
Right from the early days of the Zwiftcast, me and my fellow co-hosts were always banging on to Zwift about they just need a presence in Zwift Riders. You know, there's 60, 80, 90,000 people. Do you find it kind of weird that you didn't exist before, or this role didn't exist before?
I should probably be very clear that this is not my job. It's something that I decided to do for pretty much the reasons you state. Our social support has always been more down the forum line, and I felt that it was something that I could do to support our users that are on Facebook, and I've always happily done so.
And to be fair to Zwift, the forum is a better avenue for offering support than than a Facebook page. Now, listen, we've hinted at this. I'm sure there are subjects, for instance, price rise maybe, or something like that. There are subjects that sit there on the Facebook page like a burning hot coal of contention and dangerousness. Is there a missive that goes out from HQ that says, for God's sake, James, don't touch this one?
I was told that it would probably be sensible if I avoided any conversation. I would never have done so anyway. With some of my background in the long distant past, being in social media, like I completely recognise that there are areas of commercial sensitivity that it is definitely not my job to engage in.
Okay, well, I had to ask a question. I mean, I think, but most sentient beings listening to this would recognise the position you're in and indeed respect it. Personally, James, I've noticed a few social posts from you on your personal fitness journey that you're on at the moment, which I think is working pretty damn hard to get back to or up to racing as a bee. Tell us a bit more about that.
I got fat and slow, Simon. No two other ways to put it. But I put on weight and my fitness levels dropped. At my very, very, very best and lightest, I was a 4.3, barely in Cat A, getting worked every week. But I'd lost an awful lot of weight and gained an awful lot of fitness. Subsequently, the weight I've lost has returned.
It does that.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Very annoyingly. And the fitness has disappeared. So trying to get myself back to where I was. I have a coach who's also a friend, and we're working on a number of different workouts. She loves cadence drills. I hate cadence drills. But just trying to do as much as I can.
Well, I know a lot of people are following that with interest, so do keep posting on it. And finally on this, we're both, if you say Yorkshire lads, there are people who say, hang on, you weren't born there. And that may well apply to both of us, but I'm from Leeds, you're from Sheffield. Neither of those places, James, are known for their long stretches of flat road. In fact, they're damned hilly places. Sheffield in particular is known for its kind of killer climbs. Do you ride much outside, or are you mainly a kind of Zwift guy?
I don't ride much outside. I have fairly significant issues with my eyesight and hearing, which make balance an issue and being able to see things an issue. So if I did ride outside, it would be with other people in a supported nature. So the 99% of my riding is done indoors. So Zwift is what I have, and I'm very grateful for it.
I can absolutely see that. That makes Zwift such a perfect platform for you. And let me tell you, as somebody with hearing issues is what they say, I like to say deaf. With that kind of difficulty in your life, I can fully empathise with you. It's really great to hear the person, the voice, the person and the personality behind those very helpful posts on Zwift Riders. So thank you very much indeed for coming on, James.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
Right on!
Mr. Helpful, Mr. Zwift Helpful, as I now call him, that role, I mean, it was interesting to hear James talk about it, actually. It's not kind of an official role, it's just something he's taken on himself, that he goes into Zwift Riders and looks to see questions that have been asked, and if he can answer them, he does, and if he can't answer them, he finds somebody who can, and then he passes that information on. I mean, it ain't complicated, but my goodness me, it's appreciated.
Yeah, Simon, absolutely. There's a saying that goes, the mercenaries will always beat the draftees, but the volunteers will beat them all, right? And I think that that's really the point here, is that those with passion for something are the best people to have working in that project. And James, definitely, I have no idea what his employment status is with Zwift or how that all works, but he has passion. And he shows it, and he's the kind of guy you want in your community.
How would you say, like, if you think of Watopia as a place that you actually live, and you have people who kind of are guests, and you have people who are raised there, and you have people, like James Bailey is a Watopian through and through. So it's pretty cool for him that this community he cares so much about, that he's able to actually serve them in the ways that he can within the company. So I think that that's great.
Definitely, Nathan. I'd elect him the mayor of Watopia at this point, based on his track record.
Yeah, well, 3 cheers for James Bailey. He does a magnificent job.
Right on!
Right, well, that's another episode wrapped up. Positively flown by, as it always does. Thanks, I should say, to all the Zwift women who contacted us after our call-out last episode for female voices. We're working through all those, and we'll let you know the outcome, hopefully before too long. Shane, I referred earlier in the episode to you being out of your natural habitat in Europe. Currently, I think in Amsterdam with Ray, the god of all things, Rainmaker. You and he are professional collaborators, maybe even slight kind of rivals, but actually you're really good friends.
We are. I've brought over little Maxwell. No, Maxwell's people listening to the show know Maxwell, especially my little teary dialogue. I think when he was first born, I think that brought a few people to tears. I remember someone sending me that. It was beautiful when I first became a dad, and we talked about Max on the show. But anyway, Max is almost 5. We've brought him over because it's it's winter holidays in Australia, summer holidays here. Ray has 5 little girls, and they are running riot. They are having so much fun. We've stuck Maxwell in after-school care here in the Netherlands. He doesn't understand much of the language, but he's loving it, absolutely loving it. So we're here Von's been here, my wife, and Maxwell for a week already. I've been in Germany, and yep.
Lovely. Well, I can see on my machine that it might be your network, it might be my network, but it's struggling. So I'm just going to cut it short there and say thanks so much, Shane, for breaking into your holiday to talk to us. Good, very good of you to do that. Eric, does Zwift Insider ever take a vacation?
Not often enough, but actually Monica and I are hoping to get across the pond sometime in the next few months. We haven't been to Europe since we hung out with you in Girona in 2019. It's been far too long. So yeah, looking forward to a little bit of vacation soon.
Overdue a visit, and should you cross the Atlantic, you know where I am. It would be great to see you and Monica in person. Nathan, I saw the sun gently setting on the Wrap. The Wrap is no more. Explain.
So I love to see all that. There's just a reality of there was a time crunch reality, and I think for Anna specifically, where she was like, I can't make this work right now, dude, in life. So sorry. Like, that's all there was. That's really all it was, everybody. Anna loved it. I loved it. We're hoping that there's other ways to express that connection in the future to all of you, as well as with each other, because we felt like there was some pretty good synergy there. But yeah, it's a sunset, but it doesn't mean that there isn't new stuff on the way.
It takes quite a long time to make stuff and make it good. So I can sympathise with you on that. Dave, bon voyage, mon ami. You must be double excited to go to the tour.
When I got the text asking me to come over, it literally stopped me in my tracks, and I had to reread it to make sure that I was getting that in the correct context. Absolutely mind-blowing for me. Is if you told the 12-year-old me that I'd be going to the Tour de France under these circumstances, I would have been just ecstatic. I still am ecstatic right now. So yeah, really, really cool experience. It's having a passion for cycling is something that has been with me my entire life, and the one box I've never checked is going to the Tour de France. So theoretically, in 2 weeks from now, that'll be changed.
Fantastic. Well, we will hear all about it on the next episode. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you for listening, people. See you next time. This is the bit where we say thanks very much to Zwift. Thanks, Zwift, for supporting the Zwiftcast. And we also like to remind listeners that we decide what goes into the podcast, not Zwift. Thanks for listening.